Greetings, folks. This is Book of Mormon Chiasmus. Today we'll be looking at Alma, chapter 40, as there's a very interesting double chiasmus in the section. But first, in case you don't know what a chiasmus is, I will roll the intro. Chiasmus is a literary structure widely used in ancient Hebrew and Egyptian texts, in which the grammatical concepts of the first half of the sentence or structure are reversed in the second half, creating an A-B-B-A pattern. Its use is possibly to create symmetry, emphasize a contrast, or make text easier to memorize. The name derives from the Greek letter chi, which is X-shaped, visually representing how the words and ideas cross over each other in the sentence or structure. All right, so on to Alma chapter 40. We're going to start in verse 15. This whole chapter is highly stylized, but there's this interesting double chiasmus that happens in verse 15 that has to do with the state of happiness or misery that the souls of God are in. And before this, he is talking about the spirits of all those who die are either in happiness or misery in a state waiting the resurrection. And so this section is talking about the resurrection, what it means. So you can notice that I have highlighted in green and red both happiness and misery, and those show up again in next to the blue terms where it says their consignation to happiness or misery. So you can see that that concept is repeated here 3 times, and that sort of forms the outside of these two structures, happiness or misery. And so the two chiasmus structures have one is you have red letters A B C C prime B prime A, and then you have a blue chiasmus A B C D E, E prime D prime C prime B prime A prime, and then there's C prime and B prime in red down below where this kind of mixes together. So it's really interesting form. So kind of looking at the red chiasmus, you can see on the outside the words happiness and misery frame that chiasmus. They're in both of those places. Then in the B and B prime term, it says of the soul, and in B prime, the raising of the spirit or the soul. So those of the soul is embedded within this. And then in the C and C prime term, it's the idea of the resurrection. He says there are some that thought to that the raising of the spirit before the resurrection, but to a state of either paradise or darkness. Before the resurrection was the first resurrection. Yea, I admit it might be termed a resurrection. And then he kind of repeats that in backwards. So nice little double repetition of resurrection right in the middle. And, it's a short little chiasmus. But you're going to see down below, they're going to repeat the C prime and B prime terms. So they're going to say, can be a resurrection of the souls and their consignation to happiness or misery. So he's going to repeat that second time down below and embed it kind of in the blue chiasmus, which is kind of interesting. So we're going to look at the blue chiasmus next. And so you can see in blue with white letters and their consignation to happiness or misery. This is the only place in this entire chapter where it says, and their consignation to. So he is specifically using those words, placing them in specific locations to frame this chiasmus. So again, the only place that happens in the whole chapter, and that's the outside of this chiasmus. So happiness or misery, real strong repetition. It's just a heavy marker that this is a chiasmus. So then in B and B prime, you can see with white text, gray highlighting the words been spoken. So according to which the words have been spoken, behold again, it has been spoken, and down below, which is spoken of in this manner. So it's a nice match. And then in C and C prime, you can see that he uses the word first and then resurrection. So he's saying there's a first resurrection, and that's what he's going to be talking about. And then in D and D prime, you get the word resurrection again, a resurrection of all who have been down to the resurrection of Christ from the dead. So that's the match. And then right in the middle, the E and E prime, who or who are, or who shall be. So that's the turnaround in the middle. So the resurrection of all who have been, or who are, or who shall be, down to the resurrection of Christ from the dead. And he says that's a first resurrection. So he's saying there's a physical resurrection, not just a spiritual resurrection. So a couple of the things that I highlighted. Notice that in gray with orange letters, I have highlighted not suppose. There is a little match to the end of the chiasmus, and let's see, was there something? Oh, and then the words down to is also highlighted. So in D prime, it says down to the resurrection. At the end of the chiasmus is down to the resurrection of Christ. I do think that links this text together. And so that's why I included 18 in this idea. It says, we do not suppose that this first resurrection, which is spoken of in the manner, and then working out of the red chiasmus can be the resurrection of the souls and their consignation to happiness or misery. You cannot suppose that this is what it meaneth. Behold, I say nay, but it meaneth. And there is a simple synonymous there. The reuniting of the soul with the body. So if you go back up, it's got the idea of talking about the soul. So that's a match up into the red chiasmus as well, up there. And then from those days of Adam down to the resurrection of Christ. So down to the resurrection of Christ is mentioned in the middle of the chiasmus and at the end. And I think that's why it locks in together with this larger pattern. So overall, a poetically matched and beautiful formation. You get two interlocking chiasmus terms here right in Alma 40. It's part of a larger chiasmus system, but I just thought I'd highlight the intricate parallel poetic matching structure here in verses 15 through 18. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. We'll run the outro. Chiasmus in the Book of Mormon supports the idea that Joseph Smith was a prophet because it's hard and not the way Western civilizations write. Joseph Smith was just 23 years old when he dictated the Book of Mormon. He only had a third grade education. He daily worked a farm in Harmony, Pennsylvania for sustenance. He was a newlywed of just 2 years, and he had lost his first child just 9 months earlier. So ask yourself, what uneducated 23-year-old boy with a new wife wants to spend his time immersed in Scripture? Additionally, the Book of Mormon was dictated in just 65 to 75 working days at a pace of 3,000 to 4,500 words per day. There were no revisions to the dictation. Thus, every word making up the over 900 chiasmus and other Hebrew poetic parallel forms within the text had to be spoken in precise order, perfectly. Again, ask yourself, could an uneducated 23-year-old farm boy do this? No, only a truly inspired prophet could do it.